Er was een voor-TNT, een voorsplitsing van het atoom. Het daarna was niet enkel positief, het daarna vergrootte het symptoom. De mens is tot grootste dingen in staat. Vaccins kunnen vliegen, ruimtevaart, vliegen, zelfs hazen. Is die uit de fles, zonder deadlines voor tijd.
La présidence belge de l'Union européenne, enfin la présidence du Conseil de l'Union européenne, voulait un volet participatif, faire participer les citoyens, la société civile à cette présidence. Le tout début de ce panel, c'était des milliers de courriers envoyés à des citoyens belges et pratiquement 8% d'entre eux ont répondu « oui, ça m'intéresse ». Et puis c'est là qu'on se dit « bon, qu'est-ce qui va se passer ?»
Het is een heel aparte ervaring om deel te nemen aan zo'n burgerpanel.
C'est une expérience unique en tant que jeune citoyen belge.
Ik was super gemotiveerd om mee te doen, omdat ik zelf bezig ben met AI-onderzoek.
C'est une expérience assez nouvelle. Comment cela va fonctionner? Je pense que c'est d'abord le principe même du panel citoyen, donc de réunir des gens d'horizons extrêmement différents, géographiques, socio-économiques, d'âge, et c'est de faire en sorte que ces recommandations déjà soient constituées et qu'elles soient portées au niveau politique.
La population est ultra bien représentée lors de ce panel. Je trouve qu'il y a pas mal de générations qui se côtoient.
Du coup, là, on se sent réellement inclus. Finalement, c'est notre parole qui est mise en exergue.
Inhoudelijk vond ik het bijzonder interessant. Ik vind het bijzonder interessant, want er is nog nooit een burgerpanel over artificiële intelligentie gedaan.
Et très vite, on leur a demandé comment ils se sentaient par rapport au sujet, parce que ce qui compte dans un panel citoyen, c'est non pas de former les participants, mais c'est de travailler avec la richesse qu'ils représentent.
Op het begin voel je wel een beetje ongemakkelijk, want je weet niet op welk niveau zit mijn kennis van AI binnen deze groep.
Pareil, j'étais curieux, je me suis dit, ok, allez, let's go, je me lance, je vais découvrir certaines choses, je vais apprendre des choses, découvrir et rencontrer de nouvelles personnes.
Ik kan er dus niet veel van, de gevoel.
Maar het is inderdaad wel veranderd. Ik heb echt wel het gevoel dat ik kan over meepraten, dat ik er iets van kan zeggen.
Het wordt toch al snel duidelijk dat we en goed geïnformeerd zullen worden en dat we ons beperken tot een aantal domeinen.
Cette expérience, c'est vraiment une expérience enrichissante. J'ai appris pas mal de choses lors des modules.
Maar nu, het derde weekend is nu bezig en ik ben echt heel blij. Ik ben heel hier op mezelf dat ik deze ervaring mocht meemaken.
C'est vraiment très important parce que les gens n'ont pas de représentation de ce qu'est un panel citoyen. On sait ce qu'est une élection, mais un panel citoyen, il faut vraiment l'avoir vécu pour savoir ce que c'est.
Si c'est pas que c'est la solution miracle pour tout, ça va pas remplacer la démocratie représentative, la société civile organisée, pas du tout.
Pour quelqu'un qui n'a pas entendu parler de ce panel, je dirais, le gouvernement belge vient d'inviter 60 citoyens et citoyennes tirés au sort à devenir conseillers du gouvernement.
J'espère qu'on sera surtout entendu par rapport à nos avis en tant que citoyens.
Dat ze dat zeker au serieus nemen en dat ze er ja, rond brainstormen en dan er daar mooie dingen uit voortvloeien.
Ik hoop echt wel dat daar naar geluisterd wordt, want ik denk dat er heel veel werk verricht is met de aanwezige burgers hier.
La force principale de ce panel a été de mettre énormément de considération à l'intérieur du panel. Les personnes se sont considérées, se sont écoutées, ont dialogué. Et la principale force pour moi, elle était dite dans le moment d'évaluation avec eux, c'est qu'ils se sont donné la possibilité de changer d'avis.
En dat zij zelf hebben aangegeven dat dat een van de weinige keren is dat zij die anderen ontmoeten en tegenkomen. Maar nog wonderbaarlijker is dat zij samen tot consensus zijn gekomen. En dat zij hebben aangegeven dat dit soort burgerpanels een absolute verrijking is van de democratie.
Bevestiging dat men zeer complexe onderwerpen kan behandelen door met burgers.
Misschien voor we beginnen, mag ik iedereen vragen om de gsm uit te zetten?
Before we start, can I ask you to turn off your cell phones because if not, this is going to disturb us in our conversations. But second piece of information for translation, you can have on the right-hand side of your chairs some boxes where you can plug in some headsets for simultaneous translation. Is that okay for everyone? It's working? You can hear the interpreters? You can hear us? Okay, so I wish you a warm welcome to this conference, and I would like also to thank the people who are following us in streaming. Thank you for your interest for the work we're going to present to you. I'm Bart de Burta Scott, and I'm Arno. I come from Brussels. Today, we will be your moderators. So this is, we're going to show you the view of what was presented by the citizens. And this way we'll get to know you better, but we're not just going to tell you about our vision, but we're going to celebrate a few things because we worked very hard to prepare this conference, and I'm very happy to see you again. Okay. I think that it's clear. I think you can hear the interpreters. You found your language. I think you can hear us. I think it works. Okay, great. So before we start, I would like to ask for a round of applause for the interpreters themselves because they do a wonderful job. Thank you. So the Citizens Panel is organized by Hendrik van der Velt's team. He is the general coordinator for the Belgian presidency of the EU Council, and upon the initiative of the Belgian Minister of Foreign Affairs and Cultural Federal Institutions. So 60 citizens have taken part in this panel. They come from different towns in Belgium, and they have one thing in common, that is curiosity, because they all received some information as we received them also, Bart and myself, and we replied positively to the request that was sent to us because we wanted to raise to this challenge of citizen panel and everything that is linked to AI at all levels. And some of us had some projects in their minds. Myself, I had a lot of, very interested in property rights for authors, and Bart wanted to know everything in that is done in the medical field. But there were some citizens that didn't know what AI was, but they were very curious to know what this meant. And it is this combination of all those interests that made a wonderful recipe for the soup that came out of this citizen panel, and to present to you the vision of AI. So we all want to take part in the citizen panel. So we had a very healthy curiosity, and we've been supported by Cato and Yves Mathieu, who are professionals. Please, a round of applause for them. And we have been asked for February to April to meet during 3 weekends and to develop a common vision of AI for Belgium and the EU. But, you know, during 3 weekends, it's not easy to always be present because some people have children to care for, others have an evening job, and others wanted to get up at 5 a.m. to watch Formula One on TV. And some other people had some issues to travel. I'm looking at Annick. Now it's working again for Annick. She can travel. And some other people had other appointments. So it was not that easy to do that. But we did it indeed, the 60 of us, so that was not that obvious. And during this vision discussion, so we talked about our concerns. And during this process, we've learned many things concerning AI, thanks to the experts who came to see us. And I see some of them in the room. Thank you. And they gave us some information and they answered our questions. So we are convinced that our panel can bring some added value, and we are very happy to have this democratic process that we managed to launch together. So together with the citizen panel, we are very proud of what we have developed and what to have the opportunity to present this to you. So we talked also about defense, and this is something that was less developed in our vision. And as panel members, we didn't think that this was the place to provide an opinion on how AI can be used in the field of defense, because as citizens, we are not in favor of war. So some members of our panel will join us on this stage. I have too many papers in my hand, but let's move on to the next round. That's for the speakers, and we have a certain number of people from the panel who will do a presentation, a short presentation, and they were having a discussion with all political representatives. Yes, so Bernd, Maria, Axel, Jasper, and Sophie, Athénaïs, can you come and join us, because you're going to convey the 9 key messages that we have for you. A round of applause.
Ben voilà, je pense qu'on est tout complet. Bonjour, je m'appelle Bernd et je...
Good morning, I'm Bert. I come from Open. I'm very proud to have been able to take part in this project. I've learned many things, and I'm pretty sure that I will keep using AI in my daily work. Now, I would like to give you the key message number 1, so helping human beings without replacing them. First, everyone should take on their own responsibilities to adapt to change. Artificial intelligence transforms our world at the speed of light, and can have an impact on labor. According to the IMF, we expect that 60% of jobs could be modified by AI, and that 7% of jobs could disappear while other positions will be created. So this development is both an opportunity and a challenge. To have successful changes, all the parties concerned, individuals, companies, trade unions, must take on their responsibilities. Secondly, AI should help human beings without replacing them. So we have to anticipate changes and prepare changes in orientation. The key idea is that AI should help people, not replace them. To make this vision a reality, we need to propose in due time some continuous training and reorientation so that the workers can raise up to the new requirements of the world of labor. Thirdly, the time that we can save thanks to AI by reducing the workload should not carry out some job losses, should not trigger some job losses, but could be can help us to dedicate our time to high added value tasks. And that could lead to a higher satisfaction at work and to a better balance between professional life and private life. And we discussed this especially for training in education and healthcare. AI can improve our daily work and create more decent jobs. So in order to reach this objective and tackle the challenges and the opportunities of AI, if there's a salary loss if one part of your job is covered by AI, or the difficulty to find another job if you don't have enough qualifications, because jobs will require more and more qualifications with AI, and that could reduce the need for human resources and increase unemployment. So it is important that we manage this change together and that we take into account the interest of all the parties concerned. Thank you. Now I'm going to give the floor to Maria.
Hallo, ik ben Maria Luckerat.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria and I come from Brussels. When I received a phone call, when I was told that I could take part in this panel, I was very excited, and I started to shout, and Kato told me, be more calm, but I was very enthusiastic, and I'm very happy that I could take part, and some people that I met here almost became members of my family. And in fact, managing AI, what does it mean? We need to invest in the current generation and the future generation. So the current generation is an investment for the future. Of course, half of the work has been done then. So a little question for you. Who is writing emails without ChatGPT? Oh, many of you. Okay, that's good. That's good. Not me. I don't do this anymore. I call on to ChatGPT because it does it much better than I would. So third question. So you're asking me a question. For example, you ask me to write the summary of a book, and then or you can ask me to write a scientific article with some references of the literature, mentioning some sources, and someone else asks me to do a critic. Give me a week and I will do it. No, not anymore. In 1 minute it is done, ladies and gentlemen. That can be done with a good quality, and it works. The work is done differently, but it works. So do we assess things the same way? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. No, the assessment should be different. And we must have some critical thinking. The communication part of it is very important. We need to discuss that together. We must learn to manage conflict. A group work is what we should focus on. Creativity and soft skills, and especially in the field of education, these are key. And I'm not an enemy of AI because I'm using it myself, but this should not become a requirement for basic capabilities. So as citizens, we are worried about worried for creative citizens because, an author, an artist, what does it mean to be an author and an artist? Is that creating something, or is that looking for something in the framework of AI? Maybe it's a combination of both. So how can we make sure that the creative citizens, artistic citizens are not questioned or challenged? Maybe we should review property rights, intellectual property rights. I'm here because I base myself on the the idea that you're going to reassure us, citizens, by making sure that this report becomes a reality.
Ik geef het woord aan Axel.
Axel, you have the floor. Good morning, everyone. I'm Axel. I come from Brussels. So maybe a few words to tell you about how I felt about this citizen panel for 3 weeks with other citizens. So I was very curious at first. I had some doubts when you want to gather so different people on such a difficult topic. But as it was said before, this has mixed up all of our views, and I think the report is quite good. So I'm here to present to you one of the other key points we wanted to talk about. That's the economic systems and forces, competition, a new approach. So within this panel, we've been able to distinguish 3 points that we think are important to share here. First, companies today, most of the progress made in AI are due to companies that, because of their freedom of action and budget, could provide really new things. It is important in this situation that the EU invests more in this field so as to be competitive with these companies and to not be dependent of those superpowers. It's also important to have some healthy competition while preventing monopolies and favoring information sharing. And finally, based on this first point, it is essential for the EU to prevent any technological monopoly, whether it's from the EU or not. And we need to raise to the challenge to generate enough revenues in the future that could help us to maintain our economic position of the EU in the global scene. And finally, this with any technological transformation, some jobs will disappear, some others will be created. And so we need to understand that this will be accompanied by deep economic changes. Maybe this is a way to consider a new economic order and maybe with a new citizen panel. So I will conclude by a quote. It's a short quote that just says, amplifying human intelligence can only be good. So maybe this doesn't mean much, but this is from Yann LeCun, who got a Nobel Prize in 2018 because he's considered as the godfather of AI as we know it now. And Mr. LeCun is French, so an EU citizen. And so it means that we should not be ashamed of our technological skills. Thank you very much. I'm going to give the floor to Axel.
Hallo allemaal, ik ben Axel en ik kom uit...
Good morning, everyone. My name is Axel. I come from Voorne. And well, this is the key moment of this panel for me to be able to be in this large room and to have... to be able to see the people with whom we've been talking about AI for 3 weekends. And it's about research and innovation in fields that are opportunities of innovation that would not be accessible without that. Thanks to the great calculation capabilities of AI, we can obtain faster results, which can lead to practical applications of this abstract research. But there is a loss of smart people, and because of that, and that could damage the EU. And so this AI can generate good results to stimulate research when it comes to the development of AI. And it is essential to invest in the European Union in investment in niches and in large research centers such as universities that maybe can be strengthened. And we need to support private companies by some funding, and that could inspire young people with this research, and that could offer other solutions to solve issues such as the energy crisis, the optimization of other fields that are a source of pollution, and improving the working conditions. Thank you.
En ik geef de microfoon door aan Jasper.
And I give the floor to Jasper. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Jasper. I come from Antwerp. So what I thought was the most interesting in the panel is the demos. So on during the first weekend in our working group, we've learned a lot based on what AI is already doing now. To give you an example, in the VDAB, they're using AI to give jobs that best suit some job seekers. And I'm going to tell you about AI in the environment, solutions for our environmental footprint. So the key message for us is that the environmental footprint or carbon footprint should be taken into account in developing AI systems. And it is not done enough now. So in the public domain, on the political agenda, on the developments of AI systems, the potential solutions should be taken together based on their carbon footprint. You know, one doesn't go without the other. And so it is very important that the negative impact of AI on the environment is taken seriously. This technology or these different technologies that are quite advanced are using a lot of raw materials, whether it is energy, water, and other key materials that are key for existence on this planet. So this is a burden for the environment and for our natural materials that are of a great value. So we need to include these aspects in our efforts in terms of sustainability. The climate target is then essential. Now, raising the awareness is essential and should be improved, and we need to implement efficient measures to reduce the environmental footprint of AI so that the technological progress can allow us to reach a good balance between development and environmental protection. So raising to this challenge together is key to have a positive impact on the environment and to have a healthy planet for us and for future generations.
Ik geef het woord door aan Bavo.
I give the floor to Bavo. Good morning, everyone. I'm Bavo. I come from Zottegem, and based on this citizen panel, you know, when I received the invitation, I thought it was a joke from VTM, but 3 or 4 months later, I'm quite proud of myself, and I'm proud that I could do all of this with these very smart people, wonderful people who took part in this organization. So I'm going to tell you about fake news information that is not trustworthy. So it is important that this information is considered as a high risk for human beings, for democracy. We do think that fake news can be generated by AI and providing information that are no longer trustworthy. So this has a high impact on our society and our communities. So we must be able to inform people and raise their awareness on these fake news so that people can identify them as such and assess the consequences of them. So education, the local authorities, the users of the media, those who publish those fake news must be must be made accountable of these fake news. And then the illegal fake news that are disseminated should be sanctioned. And so we consider that deepfake fake news should be considered as a high risk and not just as a low risk, as it is the case for now in the framework of AI discussion. So it should be high on the political agenda at the national and European level.
Ik geef graag het woord door aan Anne-Sophie.
Now I give the floor to Anne-Sophie. Good morning. I come from Milan, near Jordan, and I can tell you that this panel has really been an incredible human experience for me. It was great. It was an encounter with many different people, you know, the crossroads of old Belgium, in fact, in the central place in Palais d'Egmont. Now, since then, I've found out that we could be a selection for a panel once every 10,000 years. So I feel very lucky. I think that was better than buying a lottery ticket. So if one day you receive the kind of letter, even if you're not really interested in the topic, it was my case, just say yes. Say yes, because this is quite an incredible experience. And so now, well, not only I was selected for this panel, but I had to present two key topics and not just one. So the first message is the position of the EU in the world. So the ambition should be to invest, to protect, and to promote the European values. And so it seemed important to us that the EU encourages a European development of AI. Maybe we are much behind compared to the US and China, but it's not too late. So it would be a good thing that the EU encourages more investment, public and private investment in AI, so that we can catch up in this field. We have some brain, and we have to keep them within the EU to avoid the brain drain. We need to better communicate in what is done in the EU to stimulate people so that they choose those professions to stimulate this sector. We need to invest together throughout Europe and avoid competition between the member states so that collectively we can make AI a European strength that would comply with the standards in force in the Union and our values of humanity, democracy, and well-being. We need to fight for these values and standards. Let's not let the influence of other powers get into AI. We need to invest in cyber defense and security so as to protect European autonomy in those very sensitive fields. In AI, everything is going very fast. The EU should find some neutral and independent experts that could help the EU to make decisions quicker when it comes to political choices, as well as for the regulations to put in place. So that's for the point 7 of our report. Now I move on to point 8 of our report. So it's the global agreements. We can think that the EU should take some initiatives. Within the panel, we think in the interest of humans and democracy that it is a priority to reach global agreements on the development and applications of AI. Indeed, given the speed of AI developments, it is urgent to initiate that type of agreements. So the AI Act is a good start, and the EU should take the lead to propose this, and especially in 3 fields that seem priority fields for us: ethics, especially concerning the use of AI in defense and armed conflicts; climate impact; and social justice. And agreements doesn't mean obstacle. We need to develop those agreements that will give some value to our European ethic, values, and choices while preserving a good speed of AI development in the Union. Here, again, the intervention of neutral and independent experts will be important, will be key to be able to propose short and long-term agreements to all the European partners in the world. There was the Ottawa Treaty for landmines. There was the Paris Agreements for climate. There was a treaty on the ban of nuclear weapons. So we have hope that there will be an international agreement concerning AI.
La parole à Athénaïs.
And without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Athénaïs. Good morning. I come from Liège. And I will speak about the last of our 9 key messages, human in the loop and human contact, 2 founding principles for the future development of AI. Despite the regulations already in place on this subject, that is to say the AI Act, we believe it is vital that AI is used as a decision-making tool for humans and not as a replacement for them. Everyone needs human contact, and we're worried that this will diminish. It is also important that everyone can understand and participate in the use of AI so that no one is excluded from society because of a lack of access to technology. Human involvement throughout the decision-making process and not simply at the end of it is therefore crucial to guaranteeing transparency and trust, especially in sensitive areas such as health or defense, where AI is increasingly present. For example, in the field of medicine, the involvement of healthcare professionals is essential to ensure informed decisions and avoid errors. In the defense sector, humans must always remain responsible for the actions of machines while using AI for precise calculations and rational decision making. This was the last of our 9 key message. And Arnaud, I think it's now your turn. Thank you.
Goed. Goh. Bon, de orde van de dag. Moest hier een bel staan?
Okay, the agenda for today, I do not know whether there is a bell, but it's a long time ago that I should have rung the bell because we should have started the discussion a long time ago. Sorry again, and sorry for the interpreters because they have to translate all of this. But we've been thinking very hard. So what is it that we're going to do right now? We're going to have 2 discussions. There will be panel members who are going to come here on stage and they're going to ask questions to our guests. So there is a possibility to interact with one another. Should you have a question, if you are a member of the audience, should you have a question, please raise your hand, grab a microphone, say your name and ask your question. But I would like you not to speak too fast. Do not forget the interpreters because the interpreters are human beings. And we know that sometimes in a discussion we may get, carried away. And so we have a limited time for answers. We only have, and you will only have 3 minutes for answers. It will be the citizens who will do the moderation. And so this is what's going to happen, and the interaction is going to take place in 3 languages. Once again, thanks to the interpreters. So, and I think this is it. I said everything I needed to say. So let's get started. Jasper and Bavo, could you please join me on stage? Yes, please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for them.
Zij zullen de vragen.
Okay, so they're going to ask questions to Hendrik van de Velde, the general coordinator of the Belgian presidency of the EU Council. Colin Yuna, head of cabinet with the Vice President of the Commission, Head of European Policy and European Institutions. And I would like to ask them to join me on stage as well. Sorry, my mistake. I got carried away. I'm sorry. But there is a small video that we'd like to show you because originally we had invited a couple of people, one of them being Alexander De Croo and Mrs. Masucha. Yes, I know you are very disappointed. I know it's a pity, but they sent us a video message because they knew that we would be very disappointed not having them with us. So let us have a look at those clips.
Ik had gehoopt persoonlijk aanwezig te zijn, maar door mijn agenda is het niet mogelijk. Sorry daarvoor. Vandaag staan jullie harde werk in de kijker. Ik wil jullie eerst van harte feliciteren. 3 maanden lang hebben jullie gedebatteerd over kunstmatige intelligentie. 3 maanden lang hebben jullie gezamenlijk visie gegeven aan de toekomst van kunstmatige intelligentie. Een belangrijke eerste stap. Het is nu aan ons om jullie werk voor te zetten. Kunstmatige intelligentie is essentieel voor onze samenleving. Het kan ons leven, onze economie en onze sociale interacties diepgaand transformeren. De AI Act is het allereerste wettelijke kader dat de risico's van AI aanpakt en Europa in staat stelt wereldwijd een leidende rol te spelen. In deze context hebben we dit burgerpanel georganiseerd. Resultaten kunnen dienen als basis voor het beleid binnen de Europese Unie. AI maakt deel uit van de toekomst van de Europese Unie. En daarom moeten we ons blijven voorbereiden op die toekomst. Die hebben niet alleen de kansen die AI biedt belicht, maar ook de ethische en sociale uitdaging die AI met zich meebrengt aangeboord. Om verder te discussiëren en om dieper begrip van uw waardevolle werk te krijgen, wil ik u graag allemaal uitnodigen voor een bezoek aan Wetstraat 16. Een kans om direct in gesprek te gaan, meer inzichten te delen en ervoor te zorgen dat uw bijdragen onze beleidsvorming blijven beïnvloeden. Jullie boodschap is luid en duidelijk. Participatieve democratie werkt omdat het politici en burgers dichter bij elkaar brengt. En daar hebben jullie bewijs van geleverd. Dank u daarvoor en heel veel succes.
Dear Prime Minister De Croo, dear Minister Labib, dear ladies and gentlemen, and dear citizens, it is a privilege for me to address you today. Firstly, I want to congratulate the Belgian presidency and Prime Minister De Croo and Minister Labib for truly innovating our democracy at the European level. The Belgian presidency has set an important precedent. It should inspire all future presidencies of the European Union to organize their own citizens' panels as part of their official program. I hope that other member states will learn from this example that you have set. It is clearly already implementing the Defense of Democracy package and the recommendation on citizen engagement which the European Commission adopted last December. As European Commission Vice President for Democracy and Demography, it's an honor for me to congratulate all 60 Belgian citizens on the impressive amount of work you have done in this panel. You are innovators who have proved yet again that deliberation with citizens works. I hope that as a result of this panel, trust has been gained, that citizens trust politicians and institutions more, and very importantly, that we politicians learn to trust citizens a bit more too. Secondly, I want to congratulate Belgium on making democracy a key part of your presidency program. This citizen panel on artificial intelligence shows just how important it is for citizens to have a voice in our democracy. I am amazed at what citizens can achieve when given a safe and transparent space to engage in issues that are important to them. And artificial intelligence is not an easy subject to discuss. We are organizing European citizen panels very similar to this presidency panel. We had one on virtual worlds last year, which fell into the Artificial Intelligence Act. Artificial intelligence holds immense potential. Artificial intelligence confronts us with novel challenges on data privacy, information integrity, and economic fairness. It affects all aspects of our lives, from healthcare to farming and many others. We need an AI that is trustworthy and puts people first, but we also need to protect Europeans from the risks of unregulated AI. That is why we have come forward with an Artificial Intelligence Act, the world's first comprehensive legal framework on how to avoid and mitigate risks from AI, while at the same time promoting trust and innovation. The AI Act goes a long way to guaranteeing the safety and fundamental rights of people and businesses. This AI Act supports the human-centric, transparent, and responsible development, deployment, and take-up of AI in the European Union. And my last words to you today are on the concrete report produced by this Belgian Presidency Citizens Panel. All 60 citizens have put in a lot of work to presenting a vision that can inspire all levels of governance. Your 9 clear messages show an ambitious, responsible approach. I take note of your desire to contribute in an active way to just and fair European Union, a union that is built on prosperity for all and with a long-term view of the future. Indeed, I agree with you, the citizens, that the European Union must remain an attractive place for investment and avoid the brain drain. And you are right that we should ensure that everyone who wants to stay, live and work in the European Union should be able to do so. that they have a real choice. I have also been working on this when looking at demographic change, when looking at brain drain and our communication on harnessing talents in Europe. In your report, you call your vision a gift. I share that view. I thank you for this precious gift that you have given to the European Union and all 27 member states. Thank you so much.
Mesdames et messieurs, je m'excuse.
Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the video by Mr. De Croo, which wasn't translated.
Bon, we gaan dat nog eens doen.
Okay, so back to the two citizens. I think they're ready. I would like to invite here on stage Hendrik van de Baver, Wilfred Collin, Shiklin Kura, head of cabinet of the vice president of the European Commission, and Corinne Stratulet, associate director and head of European policy and institutions.
Goeiedag, meneer Van de Velde. Ik ben Jasper uit Antwerpen.
Good morning, Mr. Van der Velde. My name is Jasper and I come from Antwerp. First of all, let me thank you. Thank you very much for supporting this initiative of the Citizens Panel. And I think that I speak here in the name of the 60 citizens who've taken part in the panel. So the objective behind the Citizens Panel was to gather the views of the citizens on the political direction that one should take. I must say that these opinions coming from the Citizens Panel will be shared with the different institutions, hoping this could serve as a source of inspiration for the next legislature. What was your objective when starting this panel, and are you happy with the results? Well, thank you very much. I must say that it takes a lot of conviction, at political level to try and explain people what it represents. But, politicians and political representatives know it very clearly. We've been doing this for 20 years already, but it's a good thing that you acknowledge this. So why? Why do we do this? Well, I think I said it during the panel. I must say there was a real momentum after the conference on the future of Europe, and we really wanted to take opportunity of this momentum, because Belgium is considered to be one of the countries which does maybe more than your average EU country does. This is certainly not a new idea, but we decided to go for it, and we decided to really make the most of the Belgian presidency of the EU Council. It does not happen very often. It happens once in a generation if you are a civil servant. So as to your question of knowing whether we are happy with the results, well, yes, for several reasons. Reason number one is the fact that it worked quite well, I must say, and we've made sure that people could, become a part of the panel. It required quite a lot of organization, but it worked very well. There were 60 of you. You come from very different backgrounds. You were coming from different parts of the country. You come from different age brackets, but you gathered for 3 weekends, and I must say that this resulted in very good results on quite complicated issues. This is what I would say. And so for those who are, as me, convinced of the usefulness of having such a panel, this is the result that we expected, and we are over the moon that it worked so well. Why are we also happy? It's because of the result. I read the report, and obviously I heard already quite a lot while attending the Citizens Panel, but I read the report very scrupulously, and I must say that regarding recommendations, what is really very positive is the form. This is a new topic. This is the new issue. And I must say that you've managed to convey very straightforward messages. You know, politicians, this is exactly what they need. They like it when they are presented with such a straightforward solutions. It's pretty clear, it's pretty simple. It may sound complicated, but it looks very, very, very simple. I'm sorry, I have to interrupt, but your time's up. You should move to the next question. I'm sorry. Have I already used up the 5 minutes that had been given to me? I thought I at 10 minutes. Okay, so my mistake. Sorry. I'm not going to repeat everything you said. But there were 10 things that I wanted to share with you. I will limit myself to 3. What really struck me is that you make a lot of reference to the need for people to be accountable, because very often when you listen to politicians, very often, you know, what you hear from them is that they want to be very soothing and they want to meet the needs of the voters. But I must say that you didn't do that. But what also struck me is that there are quite a lot of expectations from the European level. The expectations are clear. People have a lot of expectations regarding what Europe can and cannot do. And finally, there's the conclusion, the humans in the loop. I must say that this is something that is expressed very positively. It's not that you are worried about, you know, AI being a tidal wave that's going to overwhelm everyone. But thank you, and sorry for not respecting the speaking time that was allocated to me. Mr. Shikluna, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I hope you recognize yourself. Sorry for mispronouncing your name. But anyway, thank you very much for you for being here. And I'm also speaking in the name of all of the citizens. And we are really delighted to have you here at this occasion where we present the report and where we have a discussion about the report. I come from Zottegem, and when we talked about the AI Act. The AI Act had just been voted and just been adopted at EU level, and it is the very first piece of regulation on AI worldwide. Our report is not going to change the AI Act insofar as it has just been approved, but it could be, you know, a source of inspiration. So my question, don't you think it would be a good idea to organize similar citizens panels before adopting new EU rules? For example, in our particular case, don't you think it would be more interesting to involve citizens before adopting a new act?
Dank u wel, Bavo. En ten eerste, dank u wel voor de...
Thank you very much, Bavo. Thank you very much for your invitation to join you today. And congratulations, really, hats off to you. I must say that you've made a beautiful piece of work.
Yes, I agree with you that it's extremely important to have this kind of consultation when we're preparing initiatives such as legislation on AI and other important initiatives at the European level. In fact, at the European level, we did organize a European Citizens Panel on an aspect of the AI Act, which was on metaverse, on virtual worlds, and this contributed to the AI Act. The work that you've done is extremely important as well, because something like AI is evolving all the time. So we will be looking at the work that you have done, the proposals that you have put forward, and these will help us for the next work that we will be doing in this field. So it is going to be extremely useful to us. I think you have touched upon certain areas where, in fact, we need to go further, where we need to develop our ideas and our thinking even more. And I think that this does not only apply to AI, this applies to all sectors. We've seen that we have tried a number of panels on different topics, ranging from energy efficiency to food waste to learning mobility, and even we ended last weekend a panel on tackling hatred in society. And in my opinion, at least, I think there is no topic that cannot be discussed among citizens, with citizens, and where citizens can give us very meaningful outcomes to help our work, but also, I think, for citizens to be able to understand better how institutions work. So it is a two-way street. Thank you.
All right, dank u wel.
Goed. Dank u wel, Jasper en Bavo. Is er nog een...
Thank you. Thank you very much to the two of you. Thank you very much, Jasper and Bavo. Is there another question?
Zie, ik was wel juist.
Gewaardeerd, Arno.
Dus, de eerste ronde is nog niet gedaan, maar wegens...
The first round is not over yet. But the two following citizens could join us right now. I'm here speaking about Bernd and Antinais.
Bonjour, donc ma question s'adressera à Madame Stratula.
I have a question for you, Mrs. Stratula. My name is Antinais. I'm 23 years old. I come from Liège. As you know, AI is a very complex issue. As we've observed in our discussion with the different speakers who joined us, it's very difficult to know the ins and outs of AI. It's very difficult to imagine how AI is going to evolve. With the other 59 members of the panel, we've worked on 9 visions rather than 9 recommendations. We hope it could inspire the decision makers, the political decision makers, but also the decision maker in the private sector and from the world of academia. We've worked on some more concrete themes, but we expect from people who get this report to translate this into practice. I have the following question. Do you think that this is a useful result coming from a citizens panel? And what is the difference that you can see compared to other recommendations coming from other citizens panels?
Okay. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you so much for the question and also for the invitation. I'm really happy to be with you here today. I feel very inspired by your courage and your curiosity and your enthusiasm and also engagement. I think they're contagious and they're a really positive sign for democracy. So thank you for having me today. Regarding your question, I absolutely think that the work that you've done is valuable, that the 9 visions that you've produced are useful. There are many reasons for why I think they're useful, but because of the time constraints that you've set on me, I will focus just on a couple of those reasons. One has to do with the fact that I think they definitely offer policymakers, academics, educators, and other stakeholders, including from the private sector, ideas for how to understand AI and its impact and how to deal with some of the problems and potential risks that AI poses. And all of these perspectives and potential solutions that have come out of this panel have been actually carefully deliberated by the citizens who've participated. So they're not really just random, uninformed, off the top of my head opinions that are thrown around on the spur of the moment. They can be considered reliable indicators of how citizens have come to think about this topic and to feel about it after they have considered it, after they have exchanged and heard from others about this issue, and after they have learned about it. So they are important sources of reference for all of those who have the power to make them count. I was personally very impressed by the ambition, the fact that they're so analytical, so human, but also EU-centered, because they identify and they don't shy away from asking the hard questions, because they venture quite ambitious ideas for how solutions can look like, because they always think of the collective, both in terms of all the people. So everybody, nobody should be left behind. We read it over and over in the report, but also the collective in the sense of all the member states. They don't just talk about Belgium, they talk about all member states, about the EU, of how the EU should set the example and should be active. And also, they don't just consider the broader picture, but also the longer term. So they don't just think about tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, like some politicians sometimes are tempted to do. So for this reason, I'm impressed, but I have to say that I'm not particularly surprised, because previous experience with similar exercises have also shown that citizens often emerge as more ambitious than their political leaders, both at national and European level, when they are asked to diagnose problems and to come to solutions of durable, sustainable solutions to these problems. And then, if I have still 2 minutes or not, but then I stop if you want me to stop. But I wanted to also mention that I think that these scenarios, the other reason the visions are important is because, like we have seen many times before with similar exercises, is that they bring an important additional evidence, strong evidence that citizens are capable of handling very complex issues. They are capable of coming together from different backgrounds, with different life experiences, different languages, different ages, different levels of education, and turn this difference into an asset and collectively cooperate to produce ideas, to understand the issues, to further their individual as well as joint understanding of a subject. And so this is really encouraging and very motivating for decision makers to use those instruments in the future, because the input is valuable, and also the fact that it comes that citizens are perfectly capable to so brilliantly handle such difficult issues suggests that they can also receive the necessary buy-in from the citizens and support from them to take some very difficult, important decisions to very complex issues that we face at the moment in our society. Stop here. I can go on if you want.
Non, merci, vous avez...
Thank you. Thank you. I will give the floor back to you in a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bernd and I come from Eupen.
Poser une question.
I'd like to ask you a question, and I would like each and every one of you to answer this question, and I will give you 3 minutes max to each of you. During day one of our panel, we were lucky enough to meet and exchange with the citizens and former citizens panel. They had taken part in participatory processes in Belgium and at the EU level. Our panel really wanted to involve citizens in the decision-making process. It is the very first time that there is such a citizens panel as a part of a EU member state presidency of the Council. How can society be strengthened by this kind of initiative and the involvement of citizens in emerging issues such as AI? This was the question, and I suggest that we start with you.
C'est une question très générale.
This is a very general question. How can society be strengthened? Well, I'll come back to what was said in the messages you mentioned in our discussions. We have a set of instruments informing politicians, the administration, providing most of the technical knowledge or preparation to the decision making. And then you have many other instruments. There's surveys, there's investigations, research, public, private. Now this is the election campaign, so you can see all the political parties talking about this. So these are the contact instruments that are necessary. And then you have the organized civil society, whether it is in the Economic and Social Committee at the EU or in Belgium also. This is a key leverage. And these are the traditional instruments that we know. And then there are the panels, these panels that are a bit new and that are entering the European sphere also. And how can these panels transform society? Well, with civil society, of course, but it's not, it doesn't represent everyone. It's civil society is organized based on some specific interests. But the citizen panels is a body where we take the time. There were 3 weekends. You can see it can be a long time. So 3 times 2 days. So this is some time that is lost for something else, in a way. So that's a lot of time. That's a lot of investment. And the other formats or forms of communication and the other that's on top of the other requests for information that don't have this time, they don't put so many different people together. So that's a way to transform society. Thank you very much. Mrs. Stratula.
I mentioned in my previous response the how these panels can help decision makers because they produce input that is useful, it's interesting, it's innovative, and it's ambitious, it's bold, and responsible. We've heard it earlier in one of the videos. But so for this answer, I would rather focus on how it can help society from the citizens' point of view, because I think that if you look at the result and read the report, participants themselves have clearly benefited from participating in this. It has helped them to improve their awareness and knowledge about a complex topic, to understand other people's point of view on the same issue, and also to understand better the implications and also the relevant stakeholders in this field. Towards the end of the report, you actually have a number of tables, which I found interesting, where the answers of different citizens to a set of questions at the start of the panel and then at the end of the panel are recorded. And you can clearly see there the difference about how their opinion has shifted on a number of issues, including, for example, their trust in AI, how their fear about the implications of AI has diminished, how their trust in their leaders has improved, and also generally how their trust in their ability and competence to handle this issue and to contribute to them has augmented. So I want to emphasize the important civic awareness boosting function that such exercising can place. The fact that they can improve citizens' understanding and knowledge, but also they can boost trust between citizens and their leaders. And also, I would say that they boost confidence in citizens' willingness and confidence to be able to contribute to decision making. And we've seen it in this panel, but also in experience with all of the other in similar instruments have shown that once citizens participate in this, they want more of it. They call for it. We've seen it also recently in the context of the Conference on the Future of Europe. This is part of the reason why the Commission has introduced now the new generation of European Citizens panel on key legislative procedures. So it augments their their desire to participate, to engage, and to find out more about political affairs and political issues that concern them and others. So there's this element that is also advantageous from the citizens' point of view, not just politicians.
OK, merci beaucoup. Et maintenant,
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Sikuluna.
Essentially, I mean, I think this is democracy in action. This is what democracy looks like, or at least what it should look like. And I think that a healthy democracy delivers a healthy society. Now, we also know that our democracy, if we look carefully around the world, but even in Europe, is not necessarily as healthy as we would like it to be. This is because democracy needs to be nurtured. Democracy doesn't happen by itself. Democracy is something that we need to work at, all of us. And elections are extremely important. We have elections coming up in Belgium in a couple of weeks. Same thing at the European level on the same day. But elections by themselves aren't enough. There's a time and a space between elections that needs to be used, that needs to be dynamized. And citizens need to feel, all of us, because we're all citizens at the end of the day, all of us need to feel that during that time we can engage with institutions, with the way that governance takes place. And this is what you've been doing. I think you're very fortunate as Belgians that Belgium is really one of the innovators in this field, one of the trailblazers in this field. And I think many other countries in Europe have a lot to learn from you. And especially this example that you've given by making this panel a part of the presidency of the European Union is a message to everyone. And I genuinely hope, as Vice President Šuica said, that this becomes something that future presidencies will also pick up, that it will become something normal, that the presidency of the European Union has a panel as part of its program. I also hope that as a result of this process, because you knew that you were contributing to a debate at the European level, you also feel more European. Of course, you are Belgian. Of course, you are from Eupen or Liège or the towns and cities you come from. But you are also European. And one doesn't contradict the other. One actually complements and strengthens the other. So I think we admire the work that you've done, and we will do whatever we can to implement this at the European level. But I also hope that you continue this work of engagement in your daily lives, in your towns, in your country, but also, again, as citizens of Europe. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup pour votre point de vue.
Thank you very much for this point of view. I think on behalf of the panel, I can say thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning.
Micro? Oui. Voilà, bonjour.
Good morning. My name is Kato Leona. I'm one of the organizers of this panel with Yves Mathieu in our teams. And first, I would like to thank the citizens for the work that has been done so far. This is the very first time that they are on a stage today, and I think that they did a wonderful job. A round of applause. On the other hand, I would like also to specify, to mention, because no one said, that 1/3 of the panel members are people who are below 24 years old, and we also had in our panel people who were in the 16 to 74 years old bracket, and we also had people who were younger than 24. And if you look at the ratio, I think that you can understand with me the quality of these citizens is excellent, and so these citizens can do better than what we might think. Now, I would like to allow you to ask a certain number of questions. Are there questions in the room for the citizen panel about AI or about AI itself? Maybe a question. Please introduce yourself and tell us to whom this question is for.
En ik was lid van.
I'm a friend of Clerk, and I was a member of this citizen panel. I would like to thank you, the organizers, and I would like to congratulate you, the citizens, because this was a wonderful job, and that was democracy in action. But I would like to ask a question to politicians. What will happen next? Because the conference on the future of Europe, then again, we made some recommendations and so on. So we would like to know what is going to happen next. We've done our job. What will be your action based on the proposals from this citizen panel?
Merci.
Thank you.
To Corina Stratulat. Hi, thank you. You said citizens changed their mind during the process, and their level of trust to AI changed too. I'd like to know how you measured that, and if there were researchers or academics on the process. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Once again, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Chloé Santoro. I was an observer in the French citizen of the end of life citizens convention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another one.
Adelaide.
Alors, moi, plus pour...
I would like to join the first question. I'm Adelaide Honk. I'm from Jean Blou. So you mentioned the fact that there were many other examples of citizen panels that have affected policies, and the gentleman mentioned the panel on the metaverse that led to the AI Act. So what are other examples? Maybe you can boost our ego, but saying that it has helped politicians, but I would like more examples of this. Thank you. Are there any more questions? Oh, yes, there is one over there.
Donc, je m'appelle Darlin, j'ai 18 ans et je viens de Bruxelles.
I'm Darren, I'm 18 years old. I come from Brussels. Last year, I took part in a panel on the funding of political parties. So to answer the question that was asked before, what is the impact of panels and what examples of panels have impacted the political system? Well, my panel did not lead to recommendations, but I'm proud that I could take part in this panel because, you know, we managed to put the issue of political parties funding on the table. If there is no change, we can be proud of the effort we made and to put this issue in the spotlight. Thank you, Darlin. Well, now maybe we're going to give the floor to the people on stage for answers. So ladies and gentlemen.
I think you had a specific question directed to you, so you might start.
I'm happy to start.
No problem. Regarding the question on the tables that I mentioned, those tables can be found at the end of the report, and I'm sure that they are accompanied by some text regarding the precise methodological approach that was used. But my understanding of how the results have come about is that at the beginning of the panel, so before the panel started, citizens were asked a set of questions, including, for example, how much do you trust AI? How much do you trust your leaders? What do you know about AI and things like this? And then the exact same questions were posed in a survey at the very end. And it became clear that some of their answers have shifted. In some cases, the shift was not massive, but it's quite interesting that when it comes to the understanding about AI and trust towards it, or their fear about it, or trust towards their leaders, some of the answers showed variation, which we can attribute, at least in part, to the fact that these citizens have been part of a process in which they've learned more about the issue, in which they've become aware about its implications, and also about who is doing what and what has been done and what's planned, and what it would be required in order to achieve progress on this topic. So this is the tables I'm referring to. It's not my own personal research or external research, but it's a little survey that accompanied this process, and which is reported at the back of your of the report that you'll be able to get outside. With regards to, I hope that answers your question somewhat. With regards to the impact of such panels and instruments, in reality, I wasn't only referring to the fact that these exercises can have an impact. They are valuable in many ways. But if you're specifically interested in the way in which they impact decisions, I can mention that, for example, many of such exercises which take place at the national level in different member states can deal with very concrete and sensitive issues. For example, the right of abortion, or how to spend the city's budget, or how to deal with same-sex marriage. And in the past, these are not just examples that I'm inventing. There have been citizens events, because you should know that citizens panels is not the only way in which such type of consultation with citizens can occur. But such events with citizens have been held on these specific issues, and the outcome has been taken into account for deciding on how to spend the budget, whether to approve same-sex marriage, and whether the right of abortion should be given the green light. So it had a huge impact in those cases. But also at the European Union level, and if you think of the Conference on the Future of Europe, I mean, as I mentioned, the European Commission is now organizing European citizen panels, or has organized, at least for this term, on a variety of important issues. And it was a direct response and consequence of the fact that during the Conference on the Future of Europe, citizens, and at the end, in the final report and outcome, citizens have explicitly asked for more of such events to be organized at the EU level. So the Commission has already directly responded to that. Of course, it's now up to the other institutions to join in this effort, and it's up. It matters a lot of whether or not the exercise would continue after the EP elections. We mentioned that the elections are going to take place, and new leadership will be in town. So hopefully the next Commission will continue this practice, and also the other institutions will join in the effort to make these kind of exercises something that is more of a continuous process and something that European leaders come to whenever they have important issues to decide on. And there are many such instances that could occur, not just the key legislative proposals of the Commission, but also when it comes to the Conference on the Future of Europe. And this is the last thing I'm going to say. It's very important that, as your friend at the back said, they put on the map the relevance of a number of issues, including, for example, the importance of looking at the issue of EU reform. Citizens have been quite ambitious and quite bold in their demands at the end of the conference. And the issue of reform is something that some leaders are contemplating, institutions are talking about it, so it's on the table for dissection. So in that sense, it's perhaps an indirect contribution to decision making and policy making, but a very important one nonetheless.
Thank you, Ms. Stratula, voor uw vurig pleidooi. Do you still have something to add on the impact, please?
A lot has been said.
Yes.
Maybe I will just add a couple of points. But Corinne actually said some of my own pitch, because it's very nice to hear people from outside the Commission praising the work that the Commission has done. So that makes my life a little easier. But I just wanted to say that, as I mentioned, first of all, Belgium itself has been very much of an innovator, but there are other examples around Europe. We look at Ireland, we look at France, which was also mentioned. During the Conference on the Future of Europe, in fact, apart from the panels at the European level, there are also a number of national panels which were organized in that context, in Italy, in Germany, in Lithuania. Je dois répéter en français? No.
Should I repeat this in French? No. Okay.
There is there's a lot of experience to draw on and lots of examples to look at. But unfortunately, it's still not well known enough. So in fact, one of you was mentioning that when they were contacted, and we hear this all the time, people are surprised and they think it's a trick or a joke or something. And that's because people don't know that these panels exist. If somebody called you up and told you there are the European Soccer Championships in a few weeks and you have a free ticket, you know what that is, but you don't know what a European Citizens Panel is or a National Citizens Panel. So we need to do more of them to spread the word. The last word, it's not enough that the work stops here. The work needs to continue, very often by ourselves, because we are the ones who need to implement what you have proposed. But it's also extremely important, and this was mentioned on a couple of occasions, that we give feedback. We need to tell you, not just do it, but we need to tell you what we have been doing, and sometimes also tell you what we cannot do or what we will not be doing. But it's important to explain. And there you have a job as well to continue reminding us that we need to do the job.
Dank u, Mrs. Scicluna. Hendrik, misschien kan jij nog even zeggen wat er met de resultaten van dit panel verder gaat gebeuren.
Donc, nous avons...
Pandemie, want we hebben elkaar vaak gezien in Straatsburg in het kader van de conferentie over de toekomst van Europa.
So we have met before on the framework of these conferences for the future of Europe, for example. Well, this was organized in a different framework. So you were in the European panel, so it was different. And it was obvious that here we were asking for a recommendation, specific recommendations on a certain number of issues that should be an inspiration for regulation. So that was some specifications in a way. And we were also in a system where there was a plenary session, then European MEPs, and so it was very well organized. The objective was indeed to come to recommendations and to implement them. Here, this was a bit different. This was an ad hoc panel in the framework of this presidency. And from the start, we explained what we were going to do with this and how it would be organized. So like we said, the main goal was to be an inspiration. So you can see that the result is some messages, some visions that we can use in different fora, in different formats. So we are in Belgium, of course, you are Belgian citizens, and the EU can use this if it wants to, but we cannot impose that to other citizens. So the format is different. So I think that this should be a source of inspiration in the formats we can use. You can have experts, elected representatives can take that as an inspiration. The European Parliament, we have the pleasure of having with us a representative who will take the floor later on. But here it's different. And as the gentleman said over there, is that when we talk about PANET, for example, on political party funding, this is the kind of impact this panel can have as the Conference on the Future of Europe.
Dank u aan het fantastische panel die ons hier...
Thank you. Would like to thank this wonderful panel. You answered our questions. Thank you, Hendrik van der Veld, calling Shikluna and Corina Stratula.
Jullie mogen het podium verlaten. Wij gaan ruimte maken.
So you can leave the stage now, and we're going to have the second round now, round two. But before that, maybe I would like to thank the people who have asked questions in the audience and who have mentioned some of the concerns we expressed in the report. And what struck me in those interventions is that they have faith in this instrument that is meant as strengthening democracy. Our hope is the hope of some people ask questions, and we expect them to be our ambassadors to politicians. Now, round two. So I'm going to call to join me on stage Anne-Sophie, Maria, and Alex. And for the guest speakers, we'll have Dragos Tudorake, Bart Stokers, and Saida Sakali. I'm going to repeat because I didn't say who they are. So Dragos Tudorake is member of the European Parliament and co-rapporteur on the AI Act. Bart Stokers, CEO, Agoria, the Federation of the Technology Industry, and Saida Sakali, Lead Democracy, King Roi Baudouin Foundation. So they're going to tell us how we can favor the use of the conclusions of this panel for the future of AI within the Union.
Ok, donc bonjour à tous. Bonjour.
Good morning, everyone. I will start with the first question, and I will start with a first question for Mr. Tudorake. I would like to know first how to say your name because Tudorake. Okay, Mr. Tudorake, good morning. So this was reminded by several of our citizens. So a few weeks ago, the EU validated the AI Act, the European regulation on AI. So, of course, we talked about this act during our panel efforts, and we talked a lot about deepfake or the human in the loop. So these issues were discussed a lot, and we thought that maybe the AI Act could go a lot further in this topic. And we think that the position of the EU is very important in the world. We should be a forerunner, for example, for GDPR, for example, but also other issues. And for the different items that I mentioned, are there any measures that will take during the next mandate to complement the AI Act? And if it's the case, do you already have an agenda for this?
Many thanks to you, the citizens, for the exercise that we've gone through, and many thanks to the Belgian presidency for organizing it. Maybe I'll spend 30 seconds on the process itself, because like the previous panel, I actually want to applaud the effort. I applaud the idea, the initiative. I think having this sort of participatory democracy is, I think, essential for the health of our democracies, not only here in Belgium. I think just as the others have said, I would like to see that rolling in many of the other member states and for many other topics. And maybe also on the process itself, because I was at the heart of this process in the European Parliament. I was the rapporteur for the AI Act in the European Parliament. I was also the chair of the Special Committee on Artificial Intelligence in the European Parliament. And I think that is also a testimony for an exercise that I think was unique. And I think ideally, it's an exercise that should happen for most of the other pieces of important legislation that the European Parliament passes. Because what we've done with the AI Act, we started with a consultation. I don't know how many people know it and how many people saw it, but the European Commission started with a white paper. It started with a white paper because also we in Parliament demanded the Commission to do that rather than start writing the law right away, because we thought that it was important, necessary, essential that they consult. And they took several months to ask all constituencies, all stakeholders what they thought, what would be the important points that they would like to see in this legislation. Also us in Parliament, when we learned that the legislation will come to us, we asked ourselves whether we as politicians were actually prepared to deal with such an important and complex issue. And our answer was that we were not. We were humble enough to realize that we had to learn ourselves to get, I'm a lawyer by profession. I didn't know about AI 5 years ago. So I knew that I had to learn myself about what AI was. Just like you, in the process of the exercise that you went through, I'm sure you learned quite a lot about what AI was simply by asking yourself questions, talking to each other, reading through various materials. So we decided to have the special committee on AI in Parliament, and true, it was COVID back then, so it wasn't very visible, but all of the hearings, all of the workshops that we organized were open to public. And we discussed with absolutely every possible stakeholder from every walk of life, from people in companies developing AI to people in the academia, in the civil society, in trade unions, in various consumer associations, because we really wanted to understand not only the impact and the benefits of AI, very important, and we have to realize that AI also comes with a huge potential, huge benefits for our society and for our economies, but also the risks. Which risks are real? And I learned and I read through your report, and you very well identified those risks. So now to the question that you asked. Do I think it's necessary to already in the next political cycle think about reviewing the legislation? And maybe I'll disappoint you if I'll tell you that I don't think it's necessary. And I don't think it's necessary for several reasons. First, because in fact, all of the concerns that you identified, again, very well in your discussions, in the report, are in fact addressed by the AI Act. And where there is room for adaptation, the legislation does have that flexibility. And we have deliberately put that flexibility inside the text so that the new regulators that will come as a result of the AI Act, the European AI Office, together with the European Commission, can constantly adapt this piece of legislation, because we realized that with this technology that is very fluid, that is constantly evolving, we don't know how AI is going to look like 1 year from now. So we realized that we had to make this legislation adaptable so we can constantly tweak and bring in new risks if we will realize that there are new risks that need to be addressed, or tweak some of the existing ones. Let's take some of the points that you made. Fake news, very important things, particularly right now with elections going on, with our democracies, again, you heard in the previous panel, with our democracies very much hurting. So you don't want AI to disturb even further and to bring even further division in our societies, which are already very polarized and divided. But if you look in the list of high-risk applications of AI that we have in the text already, you will find there that AI that is meant to influence elections and democracy are identified as high risk, which means that those that will be developing tools that will have this potential will have to submit themselves to the conformity regime under the AI Act. Looking at fake news and what we see, particularly these days, and it's part of the conversation almost on a daily basis, which is the ability of AI tools to then pretty much replicate anybody. Replicate me, any other politician, how we speak, what we say in any language, and say whatever. Under the AI Act, all those platforms, all those AI tools that would be able to produce that kind of content will have the obligation to introduce measures to watermark, as we call it, to label the content that is AI generated as such. Which means that when me or you as a citizen, as a voter, would be looking at a video or will be listening to an audio file, will be reading something that is AI generated, you will know it is AI generated. Because companies will be obliged under the law to put that label, and a label that technologically cannot be removed when the video or the text or the audio file would be recirculated on social media. You would not be able to remove that label, so that again, you'd know whether looking at a genuine video of myself or a faked video of myself. And again, looking through, I don't want to take the time, but I can answer questions on specific points, but I think all of the risks that you identified there are already in the text. There are things that are not in the text, and which you talked about: education, labor markets, very important points. And indeed, in fact, the impact of AI on these issues, on education and labor markets, are very, very important impacts, particularly for US citizens. But we have also limitations at EU level, as you know, in terms of competence. We don't have a competence to legislate on education. We don't have competence to legislate on labor markets. So this is something that the member states themselves will have to do, because it is still part of the exclusive competence of member states. It's true, speaking of the Conference for the Future of Europe, that US citizens again identified that would like to see education part and become an EU policy. I would like to see that myself. But for now, the treaties are as they are, and these 2 points, just like defense, for example, because there is also a very serious conversation to be had about AI in defense. But that again is a competence that where we as European institutions, Parliament, Council, Commission cannot yet intervene. And then one last point on the issue of let's say, the external dimension of it. Sorry for taking a bit longer.
Je pense qu'on va terminer là-dessus, mais je vous laisse terminer du coup.
Because it's very important. I think it's something on which we should be proud. The whole world has been watching what we did. And the good part of the world, not all of it, because there are also competitors out there and adversaries out there, but a good part of the world, the democracies of the world, admire what the Europeans have done. We are the first ones that adopted this legislation, and we have basically set a model for the rest of the world to follow, even more than what we did with privacy law and GDPR. And I think this is something that, again, as citizens of Europe, we should be proud of. And we're seeing now, I've been in contact with parliaments around the world, from Latin America to Asia. We're seeing now parliaments around the world in most democracies who are following on our footsteps, who are taking the AI Act as a model, and they are right now themselves writing legislation in the same direction.
Thank you a lot.
For taking longer.
There's no problem. Je ne sais. Oui, pardon, excuse-moi, Marie, du coup, le micro, t'en as besoin, oui.
Yes, and you'll need a microphone. Axel.
Mijn vraag is gericht naar Bart Steukers.
I have a question, and this is a question for Bart Steukers. You've certainly understood that we care for competition, and we certainly do not want to be outraced by other global players. But what about the far-reaching consequences this could have on a labor market? And so my question is to know, how do companies perceive the impact of the AI Act, and what are your observations? And is our report in line with what you've observed across the companies? Oh my God, and I only have 3 minutes to answer all of this. This is going to be mission impossible. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for asking me this question. I must say that there is actually a lot in your report. I could speak for at least 30 minutes. Be careful. Concerning AI, I come from the business world, and I really follow your rationale. I really agree with you. I consider the AI Act to be a unique document, and it talks in a very structured manner about the risks and the opportunities. And the company certainly need a framework that they can work with. Of course, businesses and firms have concerns. The AI Act has been drafted because of the fear that a handful of global companies are going to impose their technology on us. We should be realistic, you know, and when you look at the implementation of the AI Act, what I really worry about is what the large SMEs are going to do with it. I really don't care about the large companies because they've got enough staff, enough compliance officers who are going to work on it. I really do not so much care about what they are going to do, but what will the authorities do to make sure that the European companies, and among others, the SMEs, take these technologies into account and are given the possibility of using them competitively. This is certainly something that we should pay attention to. You were talking about the risk of fragmentation. I think that we need more cooperation among the member states. You know, my main fear is a fear of having intra-EU competition. I'm not so much afraid of a competition coming from China, from the European Union. We shouldn't shoot ourselves in the foot. Sometimes it's true that we have a tendency to compete with one another in Europe. This should be avoided at all costs. And then these technologies are certainly technologies that will help us be and remain competitive in Europe. And I'm a strong believer in this. You were also referring to the components that we can rely on. What is our weakness as a European companies? Are we competitive enough? What about the labor cost? Are these labor costs not too high? What about the energy costs? Are these energy costs not too high? There are components that we can have an influence on, and they are included in your recommendations. This is innovation and R&D. This is something at which we are very good in Europe. And so you were right to say that this is certainly what we should continue investing in, because this is our strength. And this is actually something that we do already quite well. And we should certainly continue taking full advantage of these strengths. And about talent, I do not know how long I still have. I would ask you, I would beg you for one additional minute. So a couple of things about talent. So you were talking about the brain drain. I see things differently. I think that people should be more self-confident. We should attract the best talented people, even if they come from outside of Europe. You know, talents attract talents. We are way too defensive. Should we avoid a brain drain? No, we should make sure that the brains coming from another country come to you. This is what we should striving for. I'm older, I already have bigger children, and I know that we are the one responsible for this. We should change the context. You know, as a parent, I see this as a big opportunity for them to go and take up studies in the US, but I would like also their American friends to come here and to take up studies here. And the very last thing about talent, I'm not so much afraid of the risk of technology replacing us. It could be the case for 7 and 8% of jobs. But you know, at Agoria, for the past 4 to 5 years, we've been closely monitoring the digital technologies and the impact on jobs. And every time we hear that for one job disappearing, there are 3 new jobs that are created. The onus is on us. What about lifelong learning? What about the interest that we're going to take in technologies? I wouldn't really worry too much. And I can give you the Belgian figures. Every job that disappears means that there will be 3 new jobs created. If we do our job properly at the political decision makers, we shouldn't worry too much. And I think that my time's up. Thank you.
Bon voilà, alors moi,
Okay, I have a question for you, Saida Sakali from the King Baudouin Foundation. I've seen that your program covers many of the issues that we have dealt with over our 3 weekends: health, European issues, climate, environment, education, talent development, social justice, support to the southern countries, you name it. And among all of these issues, we would like to know whether you at the King Baudouin Foundation, you've already rolled out programs on artificial intelligence. And what do you think would be most interesting and useful? Thank you. Well, I must say that I consider this document as really a gift. And so congratulations for your contribution. This is really a wealth of proposals and suggestions which have a direct link with our program. So already I wanted to thank you. Regarding citizens of representation, we, across the King Baudouin Foundation, we have just finished a consultation on nuclear waste. We have an experience that is very similar to your experience and about AI, and then I'll switch over to Dutch. Concerning AI, we indeed have a cross-cutting approach that we have also been following in the way we decided to address AI. And we would like this intelligence to be a real authentic intelligence. AI is interesting because we should address innovation for sure. But I must say that in terms of education, labor market, and even in terms of democracy, and we just started a program on democracy, our observation is that there are actually many issues that are closely related to disinformation and misinformation, as well as the rule of law and the mistrust people have vis-a-vis rule of law. We see that really at European level, there is a real need for this. And the parliaments of the different member states are certainly very much interested in making sure that what is developed at EU level can translate into good practices. This is really one of our guiding principles on the work that we do on democracy. I really think that the tech companies can certainly be held accountable. I'd like to talk about transparency. I'm sure that you've heard about this discussion that has taken place on I think it was the voice of Scarlett Johansson. It was, I think, the voice of this actress. And it's true that some of the copyright run the risk of no longer being respected. And I think that we, as a foundation, we certainly have a very important role to play. We should make sure that no one is left behind. So indeed, this is what we want to emphasize. We really want to lay the focus on this topic of accountability. And then we've got the Civita Tessa initiative that is about European democracy. The idea here is to strengthen the citizens' involvement. And in the world of media, I do not know whether you know it, but in the Netherlands, and I know that similar experiments have taken place in Belgium, but there are already articles which are AI generated, and the name of the journalist, well, the journalist simply does not exist. I do not know whether you are aware of this, but this is now a practice in the world of media, and this is something that should be examined very closely, because we should really advocate and promote an authentic intelligence, and we should promote humans in the loop. I think that this represents opportunities, but we need to follow the course. Sorry, I do not know whether I've exceeded my speaking time, but it really requires some authority. One thing for sure is that we'll have to strengthen this, I'm sure. And now I have a question for the three of you. So you will have to decide on who answers first. Fear is that the speed at which AI evolves is going to further accentuate the digital divide across the population. What can we do to make sure that no one is left behind and that this digital divide does not exacerbate itself? You were talking about SMEs and very small companies. We know how important they are in the economy. So this is something important for the businesses and firms, but it's also important for the population and the workers who feel very remote from the digital world. I do not know which one of you would like to answer this first, but this was really one of our major concerns.
Go first as a politician, because it's really more of a political question. And it's, if you ask me what is my big concern after having worked for the last 5 years preparing this legislation and getting it through, what is my biggest concern for the years to come, it's exactly this one. And this is, I link it to what I was saying earlier about education and labor market. This is something that rests very much with the member states more than it rests with the European institutions. It doesn't, I don't want to absolve ourselves of the responsibility of doing also our part of the effort. But the first thing we need to explain first, to talk as much as we can. Exercises like these ones were excellent, but we have to replicate them a million times. Because first and foremost, we have to make sure that our society understands first what AI is and what is happening, what this transformation, what this digital transformation that everyone talks about, what it actually means for them as individuals, for their children in school and for their education, for them in the workplace, no matter what that workplace is, for them as a society, for them as a democracy, as a union sitting in a global context, which is, as we see, getting more and more problematic, complex, difficult. So, and this is very much a responsibility that we have as politicians ourselves, governments, all public institutions, to develop a program, a system of actually talking as much as we can and bringing in society on board in terms of first understanding, being aware. Second, it's education. I think there have been many industrial revolutions in the past. We've gone through transformations often in our history as societies, as mankind. But I think there has never been one that is going to affect so profoundly almost everything we do and our way of life, I would dare say, of work, of interaction, as this one. And that requires also that we rethink our education systems. We rethink the competences that we have to instill with the children of today and the students of today, because maybe some of the competences that we are focusing on today will no longer be relevant 5 and 10 years from now in a world where AI is going to do 70–80% of what we do today. What does that mean for us? Where is the value added that we as humans bring to those new products that will come out of a labor place, no matter what it is and what kind of a job we do, where again, 80% would be done by AI, and we would need to bring that human touch to that. And I think education will need to rethink again what competence it brings, and also the method itself. How will education look like when large language models, such as ChatGPT, are going to become bread and butter of how our children are preparing their homework? We're not going to be able to prohibit children from using large language models. It's impossible. It's like prohibiting them to use social media. So how do you adapt your education method to take care of that? Then it's the labor market. The labor market will have to go through a massive upskilling, reskilling adaptation to be able to, again, understand what is their new role in the job place, whether it's in a small company or big company, in a public institution or private sector, it doesn't matter, they are going to be affected nevertheless. And again, for the first time in history, the white collar, the intellectual input type of jobs are going to be affected more than the manual labor type of jobs. There'll be new jobs appearing that we can't even think of right now, and others will indeed disappear, and others will be transformed. But again, all that needs to be accompanied by programs, and I repeat, unfortunately, again, that this is where member states hold the competence more than the EU. So I think, again, I think I'm speaking along for too long. Politicians have that curse. But again, I think these are only some of the points that we have to think of in how we will be projecting ourselves to the future.
Okay, thank you. I think Saida Sakali wants to speak.
Ja, ik denk inderdaad het gegeven van onderwijs en het gegeven van jongeren. Ik denk.
Indeed, I think that education and youth, I wouldn't really worry too much, because looking at Maria, I realize that this is something that she's already quite aware of. My son goes to college and he's been told that AI can be used in order for the young people to prepare themselves for exams. And I know that this is something that we shouldn't lose sight of. I think that we should really talk more about the digital gaps and the digital divides, because the young and the not in employment and not in education people, the need, how can we involve them? This is really a recurring question to me. I know that there are discussions going on with names like Microsoft, and we try to do whatever we can in order to close this digital gap. And we certainly want to help the young. I think that the difference does not lie so much in the type of education. I think it lies mainly in the implementation. So I don't really think that this is something that applies to the highly educated people, but I think that this also applies to the younger people who will have to make effort in order to close the digital divide. And I think, as we've seen with COVID, there were a lot of fake news, and there has been a lot of polarization. There has been a lot of disinformation taking place. And we've acknowledged that there are groups that are more vulnerable than others. And I think that we won't have much of a choice. We will have to really invest in awareness raising. We are faced with gigantic challenges, and we should make sure that no one is left behind in this process. And we should make sure that we've got all hands on deck. And I think that what is missing here is the efforts. Really, the efforts are not strong enough, because we need really everyone on deck. And this is exactly what we want to do with the federal government. We've got elections looming ahead, and I think that there's going to be a lot of young people who are going to vote for the very first time at the occasion of these elections. And it is true that there are topics that are top of mind. This is the case of artificial intelligence. There are also other topics that are very important for the young, and we should make sure that we invest in this and that we take up the challenge. Thank you. A lot has already been said, and I will try not to repeat what has been said. But what you do is of a great help to us, because a couple of weeks ago, I attended a panel on artificial intelligence, and people in the room were people of my generation and even older. And during the whole afternoon, we spoke about artificial intelligence. There were professors and lecturers speakers coming to make their presentation. We heard about AI boosting productivity. I do not know whether this will become a reality. We talked about the risk, the dangers, the limitations to the technology. And at the end of the afternoon, people were really relieved in the room because people realize that this is not going to happen anytime soon. And what I can tell you is that the problem is that when you give people the impression that this is not going to happen anytime soon, you are lying to them. As for the rest, I really agree with everything that you have said. The storytelling is certainly something very important. The lifelong learning, the companies and the businesses expect us to tackle these issues. And I think that the companies and the firms should act responsibly, and they should think about the future. They should think about the skills and the competencies that will be needed. We should not expect all of this coming from the authorities. No, we should have a responsibility. And I must say that I really like the way that you have developed your report. I must say that there is a lot of opportunities in terms of non-formal education. That's what we were referring to. There are very beautiful initiatives, and it's true that sometimes we forget to say that there are opportunities. Because of these technologies, we can reach out to different population groups. We were talking about the technological divide, but I must say that the threshold has never been that low. The only thing you need to do is to make sure that you ask the right question. I know that is a generalization. This is a caricature, but I don't think it takes a lot of technological experience to be part of this process. So there are opportunities. We must seize them. It's true that there is a lot of pressure being put on people with a high education level. The expert of today, will he still be an expert in 15 years' time? This is a kind of a question that we should answer. This is what I strongly believe in. I must say that I'm a very positive guy, but we should really first start looking ourselves at the mirror. You shouldn't always rely on the authorities to protect yourself from things such as artificial intelligence. Education should do it faster, and maybe the non-formal education sector will evolve more rapidly. Who knows?
Plafond au niveau du timing. Mais donc voilà, je crois que je peux passer la parole.
I think I'm going to give the floor to Yves for the questions in the audience. Yes, good morning. Yves Mathieu, this is the time when you take a deep breath, because in 15 minutes we'll have the Minister Verlinden, and I invite you to take a deep breath because it's been 2 hours that you've been sitting here. So a deep breath now. You can maybe move a little bit because we need to stay focused for a few minutes. And look around the room, you know who was on stage, but in fact, we didn't greet the people in the room. So for the members of the panel, raise your hand and look at the room. So leave your hand because there are interpreters translating and there's a little delay sometimes. So you don't have 60 hands raised today because some people, more than 35% of the population is working on Saturdays, and so some of them could not be with us today. Thank you for being here. You has been invited, citizens invited by the other citizens, by the members of the panel. So thank you for being here. Some of you are the spouses, family members, so thank you for setting them free for 3 weekends in a row. You are citizens, members of non-governmental organizations promoting democracy. You can raise your hands several times. So about 10 people of these NGOs. Some of you come from a long distance. We have someone coming from Yale in the US, and Kim comes from the Athens Democracy Forum. I just mentioned a few names, but you have covered the longest distance. So thank you for being here. He is a citizen from the European institutions, Belgian federal or local administrations. Look around the room, so about 15 people representing the institutions. He represents citizens from universities. Raise your hand way high. There's 6 of you, so it's good to see that we have the rigor of scientists in this panels, because this is social and political sciences based on hundreds of PhD theses written since 2005. Who's coming from the business sector? So you hear? It's important because you have your share to do. You're not going to do everything, but you will have to do your share. Thank you for being here. And I probably forgot the members of the Oversight Committee who have spent some time to prepare the end of this panel exercise. So please raise your hand, and you will see the list. Carmen, Gaetan, Jonathan are in the room. Thank you. You are citizens member of the team supporting this panel. Please raise your hand. Thank you. And who didn't raise their hands? You're right, Kato. We have experts in the room. Let's forget the word experts, because these experts are also citizens this morning. So the resource people supporting the citizens who have come during those meetings, can you raise your hand? And we have organized reverse conferences, so the panel members ask questions. We didn't have a top-down approach. So thank you very much for dedicating some of your Saturdays and Sundays. And we also have interpreters. Raise your hand, the interpreters. Thank you. And I will conclude with the alumni. So that's the citizens from former panels. There's 4 from the previous panels. It's important, it's like the Olympic flame. It's good that you can pass on this flame to other people, pass it on, and be able to see what is happening here as a citizen. So now we're going to do as we did before. So you will have 3 resource people on stage. 2 others, 2 more are in the room, and we just have 10 minutes before the minister comes to collect your views. So that will be the last time you have the floor for the audience. So it is now to ask your questions. And we already have 3 hands rising, but we have time because we have until 12:30. So stand up, introduce yourself, and look at the room. I don't exist. I'm not here. Adelaide, again, good morning. So I had a question for Mr. Tudorache. You talked about the label to fight fake news and so on. So this is a topic that we covered a lot during our panel. And, what can we do about this information from outside the EU? How are you going to regulate this, to label that? So will there be a COP AI? So we'll have to invite the Americans and ask them whether they will want some AI. Okay, we understood it's about protecting information coming from outside the EU. Thank you. Next question.
Nu uit Antwerpen. Ik sluit me aan bij Adelaide.
I'm Johnny from Antwerp, so I will join Adelaide. So you know that it's our brain doesn't work that way. We either trust or we don't trust. You know that we are easily influenced, and we know that the Hollywood movies are not real events. So if you ask us how many times someone had to draw his weapon, you're going to overestimate this. You're going to do a movie about this, and people will think that you are responsible for something. So I think we grant too much trust.
Goeiedag, mijn naam is André Baert. Ik ben Memedanik. En ik heb een vraagje. Eigenlijk zijn er ook...
I'm Bart. I agree with Annick. Are there any artists in the room? Because this is a topic that is not covered very often. Every time I came back from my weekend, someone asked me, was it about art? So what about AI and art? Can you talk about this? So don't hesitate if you have questions. We have a few minutes left. Okay, you will get the floor.
From Connected by Data, a civil society organisation in the UK. Firstly, want to thank the panel for all their work and dedication. I had the pleasure last year of organising a smaller but similar panel around the AI Safety Summit in London. And on that, we produced many similar recommendations, many in common on work, on education, and in particular on that call for global regulation and action and ongoing deliberation. And I think this links to the first question a little, where in light of this, I'm curious for both citizens and presenters on stage, what you think about the potential to build on this for citizen deliberation and participation at a global scale as well as the European.
Merci pour cette importante question.
Thank you for this important question. Mike for Kato, and there's a request for the floor there. Axel, in the meantime. Thank you very much, Yves. I would like to ask one last question that I could not put in my vision because of a lack of time. Maybe it was a technical question also. So I would like to ask it now. So amongst the speakers, this is about IT and IT development. So do you think that experts or contact persons have helped you for an issue that's the open source and proprietary systems? Many developers think that with AI, there's a risk for intellectual property and that we should not have a monopoly of companies developing property-owned systems. So this is an IT issue. There's a risk with AI AI not to have open source anymore. Okay, to be limited to the ownership of businesses. Okay. I'm Eveluna from Furne. I have a question for all the speakers on the stage. I'm still in school, but I've heard that for education, AI should not be a problem. But you know, in my school, we don't really use it because we're afraid of plagiat, for example. And students are using it sometimes, but they think, well, we're going to use AI and then we're going to be criticized and punished because this is plagiat. So I'm studying cinema, so it's very easy, you know, to use AI in my field. I've done a voiceover. This is very easy, and so you can think, well, the voice of this person is sounds quite realistic, and it's a bit difficult. Thank you.
La tâche de terminer.
Now I have the difficult task of conclude. So we have 6 minutes ahead of us because the minister should be here at 12:30 sharp. Yeah, so we are informed minute by minute of the arrival of the minister. So shall we start with this question about the risk of being locked up in systems that would belong to a few people, a few companies, and then that could be a problem for us members of society. Who wants to answer that question? Please focus on the key answer.
Why? We've certainly discussed this because for us, the risk of further monopolizing the digital market more than it is today is certainly a big risk when we now embark in this new era. If you look at the AI Act, we have given specific room in the text for open source, and we did that for a reason, because we really want to encourage open source, just as open source software was very good for society because it actually allowed for openness, for accountability. We believe that with AI is going to be the same. So that's why we would like to see, particularly in Europe, more open source AI developing.
Donc le risque repéré et cette incitation.
So what about companies? What do you think?
So, en in welke taal spreek je nu? Nederlands? Oké. Ja, oké.
Okay, I forgot what language I was speaking. Okay, I'm speaking Dutch. I agree. It's true that there is a risk. Our companies are more successful, and the more successful they are, the less risk there is. And so with the regulation about open source, and there are many opportunities, the danger is that there are 2, 3, 4 companies in the world that have such a weight, that are so big that no matter what regulations say, they will still be able to impose whatever they want. So second thing I wanted to ask here is that you can never avoid this, but our government should adopt a different attitude maybe. Now our regulations are too much based on controlling, checks and controls. Are you doing what you are requested to do? I think that we need to have more incentives for companies to do self-regulation. We need to support them in this way. I think that as a government, we should ask the question, what can I do
to help you with it? Et c'est vrai dans un sens large.
And this is true also in the broader sense of the term, that is, we do too much controlling rather than asking, what can I do to help you?
Merci beaucoup.
And that would solve half of the problems already.
Ministre, bonjour. Merci d'être avec nous.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for being with us. We're going to finish our round of discussion before we give you the floor, but I would like to come back to the issue of citizen dialogue at the global level. Saida Sakali, maybe you can answer the question, because we have some monopolies at the global level that have a turnover which is bigger than a state budget. So having a global panel rather than having multiple national panels, is that a possible answer?
En fait, c'est une très bonne question.
In fact, this is a very good question, because we also feel that at the EU level, there's the big tech is very powerful. Those companies are there, and we are not ready, even with EU regulations, to such investments. So we think that it requires more investment and a long-term investment strategy where we could play a role. Like you said, open source, they're quite innovative and interesting models that following or applying rather EU values, and that could be catalyzers of European businesses. But this is a way to work on AI at the European level. And I think that here there's a lot of stake. And in the framework of Civitatis collaboration, we developed those AI funds precisely to support companies, but also social innovations that could play that role. Yeah, that could be one of the innovations. Yes, and I think that here we are partners. I'm looking towards the EU. We can share those best practices, and based on guiding principles, so we can develop those EU regulations and be able to suggest those innovation pathways. Thank you very much. It is true that if we come back to this issue of within the EU, outside the EU, this was mentioned twice. So with an AI Act, can we protect ourselves from what's coming from the rest of the world? There's only 450 million of us.
The law goes way beyond the EU borders. And it's very simple. You cannot be on this market, you cannot put a product on this market, no matter what it is, if you don't respect the AI Act. So whether you are coming with that model from China or whether you're coming from the US or from anywhere else, you are on this market, you'll have to respect the rules. So that goes for the obligation to watermark, that goes for the obligation for transparency for artists. Someone asked about art. Yes, artists are protected by this law because we have a provision on copyright. All of the case law that you now see in the US, where artists are trying to recover their rights and to make sure that at least they know whether an AI model was developed with their work. Well, under the AI Act, this will no longer require or will not require to go to court because there is an obligation in the law for that sort of transparency, and believe that that will help artists.
Et c'est très important de parler de ces questions.
And it's very important to talk about this notion of culture and freedom and protection, and also to indicate that the protection we have, if I have understood well, is that companies can do business in the EU only if they're compliant with the AI Act, and that's the protection that you're activating.
Be transparent about the data that they use to train the algorithm. So if they have taken someone's song or literature or art or science and put it in a model, now the developers of those models will have to say that, will have to be open about that, so that afterwards we can use our copyright legislation, which we have already, to then go and valorize our rights, because we now know whether me, Scarlett Johansson, as a voice, was used in training ChatGPT or not.
Merci beaucoup. Est-ce que dans les autres...
Thank you very much. In the other comments that were made, would you like to react to one of those comments? If not, we're going to close this session because I think it's time.
Omdat wat u zegt is eigenlijk equally relevant voor.
So, what you're saying can also apply to the question about education. That is, will my school allow me to use this technology? But there is a code of conduct somehow, somewhere for you as a student. If you're saying, well, I want to do something and I'm using this technology, well, be correct and say you have used the technology. Because if we all have this kind of code of conduct, then we can respect the rules of the game. Because when you're using the technology, you'll have to use other skills in order to do this. But if you're not saying it honestly, well, I've used ChatGPT or something else, then we're going to have discussions. But I think that your teachers will have to follow the move also. You know, it's the comment that I made about my own generation. We'll have to adapt and we'll have to go fast because we didn't talk enough about the fast development of this. If we react quickly, that will make a difference. Can we keep up in Europe or not? Because whether you like to hear it or not, but I think all the we have all the assets on our side. So every time you open a door, there's a door behind the door and another door, and we would like to continue with this debate, but unfortunately, we have to close this session. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. All right. Dames en heren, wij hebben hooggeëerd publiek.
Ladies and gentlemen, so we have heard the questions from the audience. Now we're going to have another round of questions, and they're going to do round 3 with the Minister for Internal Affairs, Mrs. Annelies Verlinden, for Constitutional Reform and Democratic Renewal of Belgium. So we can give her a round of applause.
Voilà. Bonjour, Madame la Ministre. Merci d'être avec nous.
Thank you very much for being with us, Minister. And since you took the time to be here with us to share your vision on what we worked on the report that you received. And to begin with a short question, what did you think when you received this report?
Goedemorgen allemaal, bonjour à tous et
Good morning, everyone. I think that there were nuances in this report.
Donc je disais que
So I was saying that I thought that there were nuances in this report, and since we had some past experience with other citizen panels, it's always more nuanced than the debates you can see on social media or traditional media. And I must say that even the most critical members of the parliament on panels and participatory democracy were quite positively surprised by the panel on we need to talk about political party funding because it was reasonable. And I think that in this issue of AI, it's a good thing that we point out the benefits of this technology, all the opportunities that are linked to AI, but also the risks, the dangers, the challenges for the population as well as for the authorities and the government that it represents. So there are many nuances. There are quite tangible, practical things about education, training, information, and as education, as the previous panel mentioned here on stage. So that's my first reaction, at least. For example, when it comes to the approach of large digital companies, for example, the monopolies that they have sometimes, the approach that we need from the authorities, well, maybe there are things that need to be further refined because it's not easy. It's difficult to have a single approach within the EU, but it's not easy to have a single approach of the world to face a global company. So here, maybe we need to find realistic solutions to tackle that because we can talk about the monopolies of the powers of such companies that manage our life a bit because sometimes we are not very comfortable in sharing information with the authorities, but very often and very easily we share personal information with companies from whom we don't know the shareholders or the members of the board of directors. So it is a very important point that was mentioned in the report, but I thought maybe some further discussion should follow this report. But congratulations for the work that was done and for the investment, the energy that was dedicated to this. I think that it's very important. I understood that only 3 people had to leave the panel, so that means that there was a lot of personal involvement and dedication to the work that was done. So it would be up to the MEPs next time to work on these recommendations and the work that was done. Thank you. So there's still a lot of work to be done. I have a second question. Allow me to ask you the following question concerning the contribution of our panel to the political process. So very soon in our discussion, we talked about the impact of AI on democracy in the broader sense of the term. And so we mentioned the issue of the media, domestic security, external security, differences with other countries. And we have developed a vision on the dangers of deepfake, fake news, disinformation in general that could go faster thanks to AI. So as the Minister of Internal Affairs, you had to work with this, but you are also the Minister of the Democratic Renewal. This is why we would like to ask you this question. According to you, how can the use of artificial intelligence bring politics closer to citizens?
Geen gemakkelijke.
This is a good question, but it's not an easy question to answer. As I said, and as you said, artificial intelligence brings a lot of opportunities and benefits. We've seen that during the COVID, and it's also links to security with Sky ICC. The federal police deciphered some crypted phone calls, and then we could discover millions of conversation between criminals, and that has helped us to build up our cases against those criminals. But like you said, there are other dangers with AI, with fake images, fake news, disinformation. All of that can be easily spread and disseminated. And you mentioned the example of Slovakia with a pro-NATO candidate who at the last minute was targeted with false things that he had not said, and he lost the elections because of that. So sometimes things are published and you can no longer find the author of those messages. And the goal is not always to publish fake news. And sometimes the goal is to destabilize someone or a democracy. And so this is a difficult time for democracies if everything is fake. And I don't want to take shortcuts, but we talked also about the Evras in the French-speaking part of the country. Yeah, maybe things should be criticized. Should we talk about sexual education in school? But we've seen that some foreign powers were disseminated fake information about what was done in school just to try to disrupt our democracies. And that's something that is difficult to accept. So there are things we can do, I think, without promising that we can solve everything, because, you know, technology evolves very fast, and very often regulations only try to keep up with those technologies, and we come a bit late. So I think that in security by design, we have to be well aware that we have to adopt regulations that could be still good later in time. But with the AI Act, under the Belgian presidency, we also have child abuse online, terrorist content online. We have to fight against that. And these are sometimes surprising discussion when you talk about child sexual abuse online. There's discussion between privacy, freedom of speech. When can you listen, analyze private conversation under the surveillance of an investigating judge when it comes to abusing children? You might think this is not controversial, but it is. And even the issues of privacy, freedom can be an issue. So these regulations are difficult.
I've already said that the balance between freedom and security is going to be of the utmost importance in the future. But we should address these issues distinctly. There's also the use of body cams by the police. We talk about this whenever we talk about dangerous situation, but if at any time I can be recorded by such a body cam, and if they're going to use face recognition, you know, in order to recognize what I have said, is this really the society that I want to live in? And we've also have the use of body cams by firefighters as well as train managers. Is this really what we want? Because these are not security guards. This is not how they've been trained, but they've been given the right to record your conversations. That is what I wanted to say regarding the regulation. Resilience is certainly something very important, and we should move step by step. And this is exactly what we do as part of the next coming elections. This is something that is going to become more and more prominent. We should make sure that people are aware of the risks. We should do fact checking. We should check the facts, but when you've got the Google results being displayed on your screen, there is a sort of a fact checking that is taking place. And I think there should be some blinking light giving you an indication that this has been checked and this has not been checked. You know, I go to a lot of schools, and the young people, they know politicians because they are on TikTok. I decided not to be on TikTok. I thought long and hard about it, but I decided not to be on TikTok because this is a dangerous application, and politicians, people at parliament have been banned from using TikTok. If this forum is unsafe, should I use it? But I know that there are people nevertheless using this when speaking to the young. We should show the people that what they see is not necessarily the truth. And for this, we need help from the parents, from the schools. We need help from civil society organizations. We should make sure that this is something they understand. The awareness raising will not be one shot. This is something that we should do over the long run, because, you know, people are deceived by information, even though it looks straightforward. When you look at it, you see this is not reliable, but still, they fall into the trap, and this could be associated with negative financial consequences. And as authorities, we should make sure that we hammer it down. This is a kind of question that we get a lot. How can we distinguish what is true from what is not true? It's like, you know, having a completely different debate. I think that we really have to be very careful. And awareness raising and information is really essential. And I think that we should make a progress, especially in the field of education. We expect a lot from teachers, but it's just not possible for teachers to follow all of the novelties. I think that somebody was talking earlier on about education. We cannot leave it to chance. I find that the young and that the teachers should be given the freedom of experimenting. But if applications seem useful, but if everything can be read by regimes that are not favorable to us, this is certainly not the way we should go. We need a framework. We need a framework to delegate and to protect. We need a Europe that protects us, but there is still a long way to go. We have our work cut out for us. And if I look at what is taking place in 2 weeks' time, I mean the elections, I think that we should make good agreements, but we shouldn't wait, you know, because we really need to move on and to move forward. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to give the floor to Jasper. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is something that you've already said. On the 9th of June, we will have regional and European elections are taking place here in Belgium. And how can we make sure that democracy is synonymous with truth and trust? Must say that we have been working on a very complex issue. We had very exciting conversations with political representatives, thanks to a constructive dialogue. But how do you think it will be possible to continue involving citizens more when addressing such difficult issues? I think that there should be more of these citizens panels. And, you know, we used to go to the polling box every 5 years or so, and we would ask the citizens what they think about, you know, policy making. But this is now history. I don't think that we want this to come back. I know that policy making is something very complicated, but you know, the policy making does not only mean what is taking place at the Belgian Parliament or the European Parliament. When you take the choice of taking the train rather than the plane, when you decide to take part in a local group. This is a political act. This is what it is, and I'm not exaggerating. And we should make sure that we involve citizens in policy making. There could be elections on topics such as migration or purchasing power or climate, energy, the way our democracy is organized. All of those issues are very, very important, and we should make sure that we involve citizens. And this is something that we should do seriously. Otherwise, it could result in mistrust, as we can see in countries like Switzerland. You know, in Switzerland, this is something they do not only to poll the citizens, but it's a way for them to make to check whether the political programs are going in the right direction. I know that in other countries they have done a similar exercise on the end of life. This was the case in Ireland, and well, Ireland and Switzerland and other countries certainly know what they are doing. And so what I have experienced myself is that after this legislature of 3 years and a half, I think that really things need to develop further. But it takes some time. Change does not happen from one day to the next. The panel on democracy was a very important panel, but in the legislature, it's true that we could have launched similar initiatives. This kind of panel shows that we can work on very relevant recommendations, and that is why I tabled a piece of legislation because we wanted those citizens panel to be as representative as possible. We should make sure that the citizens come from every walk of life. And we needed a piece of legislation on this. And I know that the regulation of the chamber has also been adapted. So this was part of an agreement that was concluded at government level. We cannot leave this to chance. This is something very important. And then third thing, what are we going to do with these recommendations? I don't think that the objective is to have these recommendations have a binding nature. People can vote in favor or against, but we should make sure that there is a proper discussion, there is a proper conversation. And this is always a struggle. How can we make sure that we do better? I think that the politicians should be made aware that this is really their duty. this is not something that you can forget. This didn't work at 100% for the funding of political parties, but I'm sure that this will come up in the programs of the political parties and in the governmental agreement. I'm sure that this is going to be used by politicians in the next legislature. Democracy must be present everywhere. It shows that it actually works. Last week, I saw an article that was published in the press. Mark Aiskens had written an opinion on the Senate. Some would like the Senate to disappear. Other people would like to keep it because this is a way of representing every layers of the population. I think that the very idea of the Senate could be revisited. This week, I attended a debate with a European commissioner, and what is important is the protection of culture, the values and the standards that are making Europe what it is. We have to be open-minded, and democracy is certainly our most cherished good, and it needs to be nurtured with the very idea of participation. This is my wish. Of course, I'm only a politician, but this is really the message that I want to put across, and I must say that I've been greatly inspired by the work that you've done.
Redelijk beantwoord heeft.
Niet gerespecteerd.
And I think that you've certainly answered my question. I've got another question for you. Do you think that organizing citizens panels will be a way of regaining trust? Yes, this is exactly what I said. My answer is yes. If things are organized properly, if those panels are representative, if they cover every layer of the population, this is certainly the way to go. Well, I must say that I think that this is exactly what we've done here with this panel. And I've got a very last question. What about your vision concerning the evolution of citizens panel as part of democratic renewal? I think that this is something you've already answered. Yes, exactly. I could repeat what I said. This is not what I'm going to do because we're short on time. But what I could tell you is that in Ireland, they decided to have a maximum of 4 citizens panels a year. That is what they decided, and if things go well, this is only but great, and I'm sure that this is going to develop even further in the years to come. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to you, Minister Verlinden. And the onus is now on us. We will draw the conclusions from this morning's session. Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, I would like to thank you for attending this event. Thank you very much for your sustained attention. Thank you very much for coming here to listen to us. We hope that you've heard everything we said, and we hope that you're going to use our vision. The Citizens Panel is a valuable weapon of democracy, and we hope that this is something that politicians acknowledge. We wanted to make sure that politicians give due consideration to our recommendations. We have given them a weapon, the weapon to speak. And I think that we should certainly put it to good use. I think that it's important to make sure that these negotiations continue, and we should make sure that the legislation continues to evolve, especially the legislation on AI. And we hope that proper use is going to be made of our visions and recommendations. So what are the main takeaways from this panel? So we did things proactively. You know, we're not only here to be presenters. We've been very proactive, and we have taken good note of a number of quotes. I will do the first panel, Bart will do the second panel. This is what democracy should look like.
Aren't enough. Wow, Arno, your shoes look amazing. And feedback is important. Thank you.
Het was ons gezegd van niet te improviseren, maar dit is nu ons stukje.
I thought we were told not to improvise. Well, let me improvise nevertheless. What I remember is that Europe is there for empowerment and for protection. I also heard that we talked about, you know, legislation not being the cure-all, not being the silver bullet. But I think that, you know, we are all accountable and we shouldn't shy away from our responsibilities. This is really our responsibility as a citizen. Politicians should steer the process, should give us guidelines, the media should inform us. And this is only when we do this all together that we are going to be successful, and artificial intelligence proves a real value added. Because one of the things that I've heard is that intelligence is only intelligence when there is emotional intelligence.
Alle participanten van het burgerpanel hebben ze met z'n meer.
All of the participants to the panel asked themselves this question time and time again. What is it that they were doing? I think that we wrote history. This is exactly what we did with this panel. I do not know what people will do with what we've done, but I think that this is exactly what we need. We need a proper vision. We need to make sure that citizens are asked for their opinion. It was really a first. Citizens never found themselves in this situation. So really, really wanted to give you a big clap. You really deserve this as participants to this citizens panel.
Voor ik het woord teruggeef aan Arno,
and before giving the floor back to Arnaud, I've been asked to ask for all of the members of the panel to, no, the speakers maybe, only the speakers. Could the speakers come here on stage for a group photo? Yes, and this is not a farewell. This is only a goodbye. Ladies and gentlemen, let us stay in touch. We will make sure that we keep you informed about what has become of our vision. And so I suggest that we give everyone a big clap, and we're going to finish this with a drink. Thank you very much, and cheers to everyone.